today's video, I'm going to be going over the Air Jordan 1 in the Lost and Found or Chicago colorway. In case you're new to the channel, my name is Oliver. I love talking about sneakers and sharing what I know about the history and the design behind these shoes. So if you like that type of material, feel free to subscribe. So the Air Jordan 1 has some pretty humble beginnings back in 1985 when it was designed by Peter Moore. This was an offering to Michael Jordan just because they really wanted to lure him as an athlete away from Adidas, so they promised him a signature sneaker. Alongside the Air Jordan 1, they also created the Nike Dunk, which has a lot of glaring similarities to this shoe itself. Now the reason why this colorway is so iconic for the Air Jordan 1 is because this was actually the first color of the Air Jordan 1 released. And honestly, back then, the public didn't really receive them very well. In fact, the shoes retailed for $65, and you could even find them for as low as like $29.99, sometimes at outlet shops, and some mom and pop shops even just store them in the back. So fast forward 37 years later, the Air Jordan 1 is now one of the most revered silhouettes out there, and everyone knows about it. Everyone knows Michael Jordan as a great basketball player, but they also know him for great signature sneakers as well. So this shoe actually pays homage to the past when the Air Jordan 1 was just not as popular as it is today. And in fact, it was probably one of the shoes that was slept on the most and just stayed and collected dust in the storage shelves. So the way they tried to manifest that type of going to the past is actually through a lot of design cues on the sneaker. On the collar, we have this cracked black leather, and then we also have like this speckled dust on this shoe as well. It's really meant to emphasize that the shoe's been just in its box and it's been staying there for 37 years. It hasn't really been touched in a long time. The white leather panels also show some cracked leather as well, and you can kind of see those types of imperfections in the shoe. It's just showing its age technically. And also on the midsole panel, you can see the little bit of yellowing as well. It's not as egregious as you can see on some customs nowadays. I know a lot of people like that aged shoe trend, just like myself, but this one's kind of more subtle. It's not as it doesn't pop as much. If you go to the tongue, you can kind of see that the tongue has a bit of a yellowed pattern as well, and it's a little bit more discolored due to the pinkish hue that you see on the tongue. If you go to the bottom of the shoe on the outsole, you can see it's kind of it's got that white chalk. So 1% of the shoes that were released initially at launch actually had some mold issues on the back collar. I'll try to post up some pictures, but they were pretty disgusting. I think Nike offered to give them a refund or just give them a new pair, so I hope that went through. But yeah, that was a little bit too close to that nostalgic moldy feel. I think the way they're trying to use this shoe is as a storytelling device, where is that as if you were to walk into this old mom and pop shop and you stumble into their storage and you kind of go digging the shelves and you find this pair of shoes in this box here. So the box of the shoe actually has even more of a story. So if you look at the box itself, we have this Air Jordan 1 box, and it's pretty much done up in this black and red colorway, which is the traditional Air Jordan 1 box. But when you go to the logo of the box lid, it's actually a different color. And this is actually to signify a mismatched box that you probably would have found at any mom and pop shop essentially. So what's really special about this shoe is actually just when you go into the liner of the paper, you can kind of see the newspaper ads showing this shoe being sold for as low as $29.99. And it's just a very interesting look into the past, because nowadays Air Jordan 1s are going for more than 10 times that, and you will never be able to find a pair of Air Jordan 1s at that price, especially now. There's just no way. So yeah, that's the history behind this particular pair. Nowadays Air Jordan 1s are so difficult. In fact, this pair, I wish it was that easy to cop, because this one was actually incredibly hard to get off the sneakers at. Thankfully, I was able to hit on sneakers and get the W, but I know a lot of people that tried and they failed just because, it's just it's an iconic colorway, but at the same time, the stock numbers were 3 to 4 to 500,000. So I would imagine that most people should have been able to get a pair, hopefully. Unfortunately though, that wasn't the case. I think bots probably went home really happy. I'm not sure when Nike's going to kick in that policy too, when they're going to start to enforce botting and all this stuff, but the resale on these is off the charts at the moment, so I probably would hesitate to suggest you to buy this pair. But I think from a nostalgic point of view, if you can get your hands on a pair for retail, if you could, I would totally do it, honestly. So as for myself, this is actually my first pair of Air Jordan 1s in the Chicago colorway. I technically have the Air Jordan 1 hide in the Defiant Lakers colorway, which could turn into the Chicago, but I've never had a pure Chicago like this in my entire sneaker collecting career. So I'm just really happy to have this one in my collection. So obviously it kind of goes without saying, I think you've probably already seen multiple videos on the Air Jordan 1, so I don't want to regurgitate the same material that you might have already seen on other videos on other channels, but essentially the Air Jordan 1 is a very straightforward sneaker. You can't really go wrong. It's not going to be the most comfortable, but at the same time it's a very stylish shoe, and I think that the red on this particular pair is probably the way to go. Like if you can get this particular shoe with red accents and the black laces, really that kind of emphasizes that whole Chicago Bulls mentality of the 1980s. I personally dig this shoe a lot, and I would wear this all the time. It's just that Air Jordan 1s are just really not that comfortable, and I could only probably wear these for a couple hours at a time just because there's not really much cushioning in the back heel, unfortunately. So yeah, this was actually a really straightforward review. I'm really happy to have gotten super lucky to get this pair, but I really wish other folks that really wanted them could have had them too. It's kind of a shame because it's kind of ironic because the shoe, you know, they're emphasizing this whole lost and found, or this shoe that was abandoned and it should be like readily found, readily available. But at the same time, like on release day, this was incredibly difficult to get. I don't really understand the hypocrisy behind that because, you know, why say that this shoe is going to be so readily available and then make it incredibly difficult to get? So in terms of sizing, just to help you out, in case you're looking at other pairs of Air Jordan 1s, I'm actually a size 10.5 with a double E width. And in the past, when I got 10.5, the Air Jordan 1 fit pretty snug on my feet. And I actually really wouldn't recommend going true to size if you have really wide feet. If you have wide feet, I'd go up at least a half size. And that way your feet can breathe a little bit better. I think that for me in particular, the collar was a little bit too snug around my foot. It just wasn't like the most comfortable feeling. That has nothing to do with like the cushioning underneath here, which is fairly non-existent, but just in terms of the foot shape, just wasn't really accommodating. Now if you have a narrow or normal foot, probably going true to size would be just absolutely fine. In fact, I think this shoe would probably be really perfect for you if you have narrow feet. So yeah, in terms of sizing, just go true to size if you have normal feet. If you have wide feet, I go up a half size at least. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate the feedback on the video so far. I know I haven't posted in a little bit. I was actually really sick with the pandemic stuff that was going on, so that took me out for a little bit, but you know, I'm back on my feet now and hopefully back to making more videos like this. All right, well, thank you so much and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.